Hey folks, welcome back to another Palm Master video, and today, now that we went over techs and supports, let's talk about the strikers, right? So, strikers in this game is, I think, the largest category, right? I think even larger than tech, which makes sense, generally, since typing doesn't really matter that much for support or tech, you don't need that much variety, but for striker, you do need a lot of strikers because there's a lot of types, and super effective damage, very powerful in this game. It's 2 times, right? So anyways, let's go into this. So as usual, it's just mainly for, not for co-op, mainly for single player uses, right? Or else Drifblim would be very, very much higher than where I'm about to, rank it. So yeah, not too much to talk about. Generally assuming it's in the best condition it could be. In terms of all that stuff. Anything else that I should probably mention? Disclaimers. Shout out to Runner and NCS for working on this with me. Again, as usual, I don't really like doing tier lists by myself. Don't want to get trapped in that bubble, right? So yeah, thanks for going over it with me as well. So yeah, let's do this then. So I'm just gonna go in whatever this order is. I don't know, it's just random. We do have a lot of tiers. Because I kind of want to, because, like, here's the thing. I know some people like making tier lists with, like, not that many tiers, so they bundle everything into, like, one tier has, like, 15 different units. And sure, that does make people happy because, hey, a lot of your units easier to see. A lot of units that people like are easier to be in higher tiers, but I kind of like to break it down a bit more. So, that's why you see some like S+, A+, whatever, right? Also, I just wanted to get an F- minus in here just for fun. But yeah. Anyways, again, without further ado, let's start with this then. So, first of all, Sharpedo, Dragonite A+. Here's why it missed S, in my opinion, because like its damage is good, it's just not phenomenally good. Sharpedo's upsides. Sharpedos have very, very, very good damage, but mainly Sharpedo's upsides is basically insanely high DPS, right? Insanely high DPS, insanely high speed, all that stuff. Water type gets the benefit of rain, all that, and the extra defense down that you get, and he has a really, really good sync move as well, despite being a mega. So Sharpedo's very, very good. However, not gonna rank it any higher, I'd say. So, there's Sharpedo. Next is Reuniclus. Reuniclus is an interesting cat because, on one hand, like, is it a good striker? Yes, it is. It's still the best, psychic type striker in the game in terms of damage. And yes, Reuniclus is better than Sabrina in damage. But like mainly you're gonna be using your Reuniclus like 9 out of 10 times. Like, unless you're just fighting something that's, psychically, then, okay, you could run, psychic. Actually, no. Mew, I think Mew does more than Reuniclus, but, okay, second, whatever. But you're mainly using Reuniclus as a tank. Reuniclus is a phenomenal tank. And you could run Reuniclus as a tank in, like, different weathers as well. So you could run it with Garchomp in Sandstorm, which is nice. Hail, whatever, right? So Reuniclus is very, very good there, obviously. Moving on, Pharamos, I'd probably put an S. The reason why Pharamos is not S+, and I would consider it for S+, if it actually had this, is I don't like its 6-star EX. I just don't like its 6-star EX. The 6-star EX is an AoE sync move. I think that's not that great. If they buff it in the future, then, it could be better. Main reason being, her passive doesn't activate on sync moves, so, like, if you kill something on your AoE sync move, which you very, very likely will. Pharamos has insanely high damage, right? But it just doesn't trigger on that. As for some other stuff, obviously Pharamos damage is insanely good. Really, really fast speed. 2 move gauge refreshes on every single move. Because there's a passive move gauge refresh and there's an extra move gauge refresh and all that stuff. Has some, like, the multipliers aren't like anything amazing, but it has, multipliers enough to make it so that its damage is insanely high as well. It has endurance, which is nice, as always. Defenses aren't the greatest, right? But since it doesn't need any offensive support, you could just run defensive support, and then its defense is actually much better than most strikers in the game. So, Anyways, moving on to Houndoom. Houndoom probably put an S as well. Houndoom's still like insanely good damage. And like a lot of people say, oh well, you have to get the overpowered special attack. Well, you don't really. You don't have to pick up overpower. You can just pick up like Dark Pulse notes instead, and like the damage difference really isn't that much in comparison to picking up overpowered. Run her with Serena. Serena sleeps with opponent. Fire spin, and then you get your two extra 50% multipliers. That's basically double your damage, right? And Houndoom already has really good special attack. Gives itself max special attack and max, like Houndoom's insanely good, and we'll still put it here. Guzma, all right, Guzma, I downgraded a bit, right? Mainly because of how Guzma's role changed. The reason why Guzma was very, very good before was mainly because 2-gauge move, with really good damage on a 2-gauge move, with 2 move gauge refreshes on that 2-gauge move, and it's just not, like, it's Skyla's fault, basically. Skyla just made everything just so insanely, just in terms of speed, like, it's just not that big of a deal anymore. So Guzma's role got reduced from, like, a really, really good striker to a phenomenal, secondary striker, right? That you could run in a double striker team if you run it with, like, I don't know, Ice Steven, or just basically any striker that, has enough speed. Guzma is very, very good. Still has phenomenal defenses, all that stuff, right? So, yeah. Moving on to Palkia. Palkia is definitely the best legendary in the game. It does most damage of all the legendaries. Its damage is insanely high. Even without, 5, 5, 20 out of 20, right? Even just at 1 out of 5. I'll put it in B. It's probably, is it the best? Either the best or second best the striker that does not have a grid, something like that. But yeah, really, really good. Moving on, Inferno, I'd probably put it 1 tier lower. Here's the thing, like, Inferno doesn't have any damage issues. It has a slight grid issue. Its grid is very, very expensive to grow around. It generally could get most things that you get. And the other thing is just, as fire type striker, you do always have that slight disadvantage. Because there's so many fire type strikers, it gets saturated a bit. But yeah, Inferno's still really, really good in general, so nothing, wrong with it. How I would put it lower, but it got saved by Inertia, honestly. Inertia, it has a really good sync nuke, and it gives itself +6 speed, which a lot of Inertia units don't really have. So that's really good. Something else that you could actually run with Hau, that's pretty interesting, is you could just run some kind of like, Inertia, double move, move gauge refresh on Thundershock, just like a gauge support, sorta, and also you could sync nuke with it, so you don't have to sync nuke with your striker, right? So that could also be interesting if you run it with like a Spreen or something, dire hit, plus all, whatever. Moving on, we got Fraligator. Fraligator, I would still keep it here. Main reason is just Haymaker, it is a water type unit. In rain, Haymaker, it still does a lot of damage. Mega Kick is suspect. Mega Kick really is suspect, but I don't think it's that bad that it's bored. It could drop into C tier, but it's still hanging on because, again, Haymaker kind of sort of saved it as well. Moving on, Tyranitar's not good, unfortunately. Tyranitar would put in something like E, I guess. Yeah, Tyranitar needs a grid, needs help, this guy. Moving on, Gallate. Gallate will put it in S tier as well. Gallate has really, really good damage. Gallate has around Komodo damage, which is phenomenal, right? And Glade's kit works so well within itself. It's unbelievable. Like, you got Critical Strike 2 on the grid and Ramming Speed, which, by the way, you can all reach. It's not like you can't reach it or whatever, right? You could easily reach all these. Ramming Speed, Critical Strike 2, and on top of that, the kit is just phenomenal. Its setup is relatively, you just dire hit once, and then Here I Come twice, and then once you mega, your mega gives you +1 crit, and then at mega you got 0 in, so you get 100% crit by only using dire hit once, which is really good. And then on top of that, for ramming speed, you have post haste, which +2 speed every time you get hit by something, and then fast track 2 also again helps with the ramming speed, and then just gives you again phenomenal damage overall, right? So yeah, Gallade's pretty good. Although I would say Gallade's probably borderline though between S and A+, but I probably inch it into S a bit. Moving on, Rayquaza is probably... Okay, Rayquaza is the second highest damaging legendary in the game. However, it just does not have a role. It just does not have a role. Like, Kingdra outdamages it on Draco Meteor, right above Draco Meteor, and it's around Iris. Like, the damage between Rayquaza and Iris is not very significant, right? And Iris obviously has 2 move gauge refreshes on Outrage, has a carry on, all that stuff, just better buffs overall. Rayquaza just got shafted by that, but he does really, really good damage and takes hits relatively well if you're not using its trainer move. But yeah, just really good damage. That's about it. Moving on, Kingdra. Kingdra, I'd probably put in an A as well. Here's a real issue with Kingdra, is Kingdra has very, very good damage. It's kind of hard to set up. But, you know, it's not impossible. You could definitely set it up. It's just, yeah, it's kind of annoying in terms of the setup. But once you do set up, Kingdra's damage is actually insane. Moving on to Ice Steven. Ice Steven, that's our first S plus over here. Ice Steven is very good. Icicle, you know, Icicle Crash, really good damage. Icicle Spear is nice as well, right? 2 gauge move. And again, it's damage really, really good. It's speed, no issue, because you have the, even though like its speed's bad, you do have the move gauge regen increase and hail. You get infinite hail for yourself. You got invigorating hail. You have flinch on Icicle Crash. You heal and hail. Like, I don't even know. This guy is just so good. There's so many things I can't even, like, yeah, he's really good. Moving on, Hackstress. Hackstress probably put it in an A. Again, we are just mainly talking about single player content, that being Legendary Arena, Champion Stadium, Full Force Battle, any other hard single player battles, and then Battle Villa, I guess, right? And Hackstress is very good for Battle Villa. Hackstress, like, if you compare it, like, in terms of damage, you know, it's nowhere, it's not at Kingdra's level. However, Hackstress does have the fact that, you know, that it has Carry On, which is very, very good in Battle Villa. If it weren't for Battle Villa, Hackstress wouldn't be as good, but Battle Villa, you know, Hackstress is phenomenal, right? Moving on, Steven Metagross is still up here. Both Stevens in S tier, or I guess S plus. Isn't that interesting? Regular Steven is basically Ice Steven, but without Icicle Spear. So it's basically Steel type Icicle Crash Steven, but better at Icicle Crashing, because you have that extra, you know, aggravation on Iron Head. You have recuperation on your Sync. You got Haymaker on your Sync. Really good defensively, physical defensively, right? Just overall phenomenal unit. The only slight issue where I'd say Ice Steven is better is Ice Steven speed, right? Well, Ice Steven speed's not good, but, you know, move gauge regen and then Metagross speed's not that great. Although it could easily be, you know, cured in this day and age with Skyla being just so overpowered, right? Moving on, Kamo, I was gonna put it in an S plus. I'd say it's borderline. Like, Kamo and Pharamos are both kind of borderline, right? Reason being, oh, by the way, this is not like ranked in order. I'm just pulling them randomly, whatever, right? Kamo, phenomenal damage, right? And the really, like, really great thing about Kamo is you don't need your trainer move to get like +6 on like every stat. Well, maybe not defense, because like you lower your defense on clanging scales, but you know, again, it fixes it with high 5. You know, every time you sync, you get it's basically every time you sync, you get like not only like really good damage, you also get like EVs, basically EV's sync move, except just for yourself. So yeah, it does not have speed issues. Thankfully, because again, you get +6 speed, and you also have 2 move gauge refreshes, 2 move gauge refresh 3s on clanging scales. So really good. Moving on, Miss Makius probably put in C. Phenomenal ghost type striker. I probably, you know, best ghost type striker around. Still, it's just, you know, that's kind of about it. It doesn't really have much. Bulk Buster is cool, I guess. I don't know. Moving on, we got Machamp. Machamp, I probably put in D. Machamp, I had higher hopes for Machamp. Like, Machamp's kit works really well, right? You got Tower Hit Plus, you got Critical Strike, you got Cross Chop that gives you +1 crit, right? Like, it works really well. Obviously, accuracy is an issue. It's just that, like, speed is terrible. This guy's speed is absolutely atrocious. I tried running Lily and Machamp together. It's so bad. Both of them are so slow. You cannot even queue up a move. Like, that's, like, the biggest knock against Machamp, honestly. Well, other than the fact that it doesn't have Synchro either, which hopefully would fix it, but who knows. Moving on, Rampart is terrible, F. You know, it just takes, it two-shots itself. Like, its damage is actually not terrible, but it two-shots itself. That's unacceptable. Moving on, like, at least has heals. Like, this guy just, yeah, gone. Dragonite, I'd say A+. Dragonite's damage is phenomenal, obviously. Hyper Beam. Slight issue is move gauge. Now or never is bad, very bad. All the stuff that it has for move gauge regen on its grid are kind of bad too. Like big ones, Rejuvenate 6, where you have to sync with Dragonite, which you generally don't really want to sync with Dragonite. But if you want move gauges back, you'll have to sync with Rejuvenate. And then you also have like Revenge Boost, which means you have to like get hit with Dragonite, which is not good either. You don't want this guy to tank. But on the plus side, as you know, potions, you got, you know, healthy healing, all that stuff. It has Master Healer too, right? I think, is it Master Healer 1 or 2 or something? I think it's oh, never mind. It doesn't have Master Healer. It's 2 potion NPRs. Yeah, two potion NPRs, which is again pretty nice. But like, most of this grid is pretty worthless, unfortunately. Moving on. Oh, also it has like 1 instead of like 2 like move gauge refreshes like Kamo could have had. It just has like 1 MGR4, which is sad. Moving on, Ethan. Ethan is A+. Its AoE damage is insanely good, right? Which is really nice. Like, it's just really good damage, really fast. My knock against it is that its defenses aren't that great, unfortunately. Although, again, to be fair to Ethan, it has a bunch of heals. It heals itself nonstop. So is it that big of an issue? No, but I don't like it. Right? I wish it wasn't, you know, I wish it had better defenses. But aside from that, you know, everything else is just great. Also, slightly restrictive in terms of the team comp. Not that that's not a consideration generally, you know, for tier list rankings, but still, it's kind of annoying. Again, not a knock against it, but the defenses I do think is not the best. Moving on, I got Garchomp. Garchomp's still S+ easily. Garchomp's just insanely good, right? The damage is incredible. Speed is good, very good survivability. And since you like almost always have to run it with Acerola is insanely powerful, right? It's just, yeah, it's really good. Moving on. Berg Livani, probably I'd say A. I think I slightly underrated Berg. Some really great things I like Berg, that I like about Berg. Obviously the honor roll, that's obvious. But I really like that Berg gives himself like +6 speed with like already like 300 base speed, +6 speed, +2 defenses on the trainer move. I definitely like that a lot. And if you run Berg and Sun, which you can, right? Solar Flare, Charging Sun, although the team comp could be kind of weird, but you know, that's obviously very powerful as well. Moving on, Chantal, maybe in D. Miss Maggie is just straight up better. Chantal, the self-burn thing is really bad. Like, okay, you could run Flame Proof on it, but like, why roll a lucky skill on Chantal when you could just use Miss Magius? I don't know, unless obviously you don't have Miss Magius, but again, we're not considering that, right? Yeah, the burn kind of sucks. I mean, unless you want to like just keep the burn and run like Crit Strike 2 on it. I don't know. It does okay. It's like its damage is fine. It's the set is kind of weird. Moving on. Venusaur I probably put in C tier. Shiny Venusaur. Good damage overall. Critical Strike, all that stuff, right? It's fine. Just need to run under Sun, which, you know, overall, all units that really get run under Sun kind of got a bit of a buff recently because of Meganium, right? And Venusaur does too. Except, well, Venusaur came out around the same time as Meganium. I wouldn't say call it a buff, but yeah. Moving on, Ho-Oh. Okay, everyone but Ho-Oh got a buff because of that. Because now that Meganium's thing, you don't really need Ho that much anymore for Sun, right? Meganium's just straight up better for Sun. However, Ho is still good because Ho's damage is very, very good, right? I think it's the, third highest damage in terms of legendaries, right? Palkia, Rayquaza, Ho, right? Really, really good damage. One thing I don't like about Ho, defense is not that great. I wish I had better defenses. But aside from that, you know, self-setting Sun is still nice, right? Really, really good damage. If you run as like a secondary striker, you can still do that. A lot of really good things that you could do with Ho. Burn, right? The Ho stuff is just really good. Anyways, moving on. Emboar, probably A. Emboar, very, very good sync nuke. And you could also, you know, on top of that, you could also do, you know, great damage with the thing, Flare Blitz, yeah. And not also instantly, you know, knock yourself out because you do have Stand Fast now, which is phenomenal. And I really, really like the fact that if you are like running like a pure sync nuke kind of, you know, thing with Emboar, is that you could just Flame Charge, and Flame Charge just gives you speed, and that's great. And Emboar also has potions. Like, the potion thing just kind of puts Emboar, you know, pushes Emboar over the top in terms of from B to A or whatever, right? So, yeah, there's that. Moving on, Empoleon, another sync nuker. Although, again, Emboar's not just a sync nuker. Emboar also does good damage. I'd say probably B. Empoleon, I think, might still have the strongest sync nuke in the game, I think. Right? Yeah, which is really, really good. It's just that, like, sync nuking in general is kind of limited. It's very, 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 very good in Legendary Arena. Not so much in, like, other stages. But, I mean, still fine. It's just the difference between, do you want to take 4 turns to take out your opponent, which is sync nuking, or do you want to just bring a decent striker and take 2 or 3 turns to take out your opponent, right? But still really, really good. I just wish they could, you know, they made full heal much better than it is, right? And still Bubble Beam, actually, you could actually make it, like, do some okay-ish damage, but again, it's still Bubble Beam, unfortunately. Anyways, moving on, Taurus is terrible, down here. This guy is like Norman, but worse. So, Norman is terrible. Norman is here too, by the way. Moving on, Arbok I'd probably say an E. Yeah, it's a striker. Its damage is not really good, which is kind of sad. It does have Toxic Power 5, which obviously, you know, helps with that, but still not enough. So yeah, it is what it is. Moving on, Pidgeot, I'd say maybe B tier. What I really, really like about Pidgeot is, like, Pidgeot has really, really good stats. Like, Pidgeot's defenses are actually pretty nice, and Pidgeot has really, really good speed. Pidgeot's downsides are pretty obvious. Well, obviously, you know, no grid, you don't have NPR, which NPR would be very, very important for Pidgeot, because Pidgeot does not give himself 100% crit or 100% accuracy for Hurricane, which really, really, really is annoying. I really wish we could just get an NPR on that to, you know, help that. But in the meantime, just have to run, you know, Sabrina with Pidgeot, just like any other special striker. Yeah, run Sabrina. But yeah, still really good. You know, good damage, all that stuff. But unfortunately, slight downsides. Moving on. Scoloped. Let's see. Scoloped, probably D tier. Scoloped's just better Arbok, I guess, in general. It has really nice self buffs. I personally like its self buffs a lot. It's just its damage is not anything like amazing. It's pretty standard. It's just not anything amazing, right? Moving on, Roser probably put it here as well. It's basically Brandon, but with worse self buffs, because Dauntless and everything. If we were like talking like pre-Dauntless, right? Brennan and Sceptile are like basically almost the same thing. Sceptile's a bit better, has better speed, tags a bit better, right? But yeah, they basically have the same damage in terms of, you know, per Leaf Storm with Rosary and Sceptile. But Sceptile just have those slightly better stats on like speed, HP, all that stuff, right? But now that Dauntless is a thing, I do think Rosary is just much worse now because of how its trainer move works. Unless you're just running like some other like, you know, special support, which you can, right? But again, its stats just aren't as good. But it's still really good. Moving on. Conkeldurr, probably E tier. Conkeldurr is bad. I don't know what else to say. Really slow. Damage isn't that great. I really wish it was better. I really like Drain Punch as a move, but it's just not that good. Anyways, Bugsy I'd probably put in E as well. Bugsy very, very, very high attack stats, but your BP is bad. So, yeah, it is what it is. Bad BP, really good stats. Can't do much about it. Self buffs are nice too. The fact that it doesn't really need a MP for that. Moving on, Lycanrock. Lycanrock, I'd probably say C+, borderline C+, C. Lycanrock's damage is just not that great, unfortunately. I mean, it's not. It's good. It's just nothing phenomenal. What I do like about Lycanrock is it self buffs its speed on its passive every time it crits, which is really, really nice. Something I don't like about Lycanrock, Hard as Diamonds. Hard as Diamonds used to be like Lycanrock used to be so good for co-op. I mean, Lycanrock's still good for co-op, and it's just that now like Hard as Diamonds is not that great anymore, because since in single player you get sync you get sync move, you get your sync move in 3 turns in comparison to like 9 turns in co-op, right? And Hard as Diamonds, like the really big upside to Lycanrock before was because Lycanrock all it had to do was Hard as Diamonds once, and then you had a 100% crit on Stone Edge, right? And 100% accuracy on Stone Edge. Now in single player, you have to Hard as Diamonds twice, because again, you get sync move in 3 turns, which means if you only Hard as Diamonds once, you're not getting the 80% crit on your sync move. You're only 50% crit on your sync move. That's 30% less, right? Which is obviously a huge issue. And the other thing is if you're using Hard as Diamonds twice, not only are you wasting another turn on that, you're lowering your special defenses again, which is kind of sad. But yeah, Lycanrock is still the second best rock type damage deal in the game, so there we go. Mudstill, probably E tier. Mudstill's the second best ground type damage deal in the game because there's only 2 ground type strikers. It's not like high horsepower is not terrible. Its speed is really bad. I wish it had better speed. Like, its defenses are nice. It's just bad speed. That's the biggest issue. Jiggly Lyra, I'd probably put it. Jiggly Lyra, let's put it in S tier. Jiggly Lyra, phenomenal damage. And the big thing about, like, the really, really good thing about Jiggly Lyra is its team comp is that, like, you're running Serena with Jiggly Lyra, right? And Serena is just insanely overpowered. So, you know, by association, Jigglypuff. Oh well, Jigglypuff obviously again does really good damage, but yeah. There's Jigglypuff, I guess. Moving on, Lucario. Lucario, I'd say probably, let's see, where is the B tier? There's the B tier. B tier. It's still really, really good. Good damage, right? I think it has like really, really great like offensive stats, right? Close combat, unfortunately, not that great of a move. Just the defense lowers just kind of suck, unfortunately. Its damage isn't, it's great, but like if you compare, like we're just comparing like fighting type strikers, right? Compared to like Wally, the damage is not really there. Comparing Wally and Lucario's damage. Lucario just doesn't have any multipliers, unfortunately. I really wish they gave Lucario more multipliers on the grid. But unfortunately they didn't. So it is what it is. So moving on. Dugong. Dugong C+. Dugong got a buff from Ice Steven, right? You can actually run them both on the same team, and they do really, really well there with the extra invigorating hail. So Dugong definitely got buffed by Ice Steven. Moving on, Sogaleo. Probably in C+2. Obviously the Focus Blast, it's still okay. It's not as great as say what Gallate does, obviously. Celestial Strike is, I mean, Sogaleo is literally your only like steel type striker if you missed out on Metagross, right, which is a limited unit. Sogaleo upside's very, very tanky, very, very tanky, which I do like a lot. Speed's not the greatest. Setup I don't like either, but it's not a big deal because Skyla exists. Skyla just fixes like so many sync pairs in this game, man. But yeah, the damage is just not like incredible, even though like it's 20 out of 20. Like like the only other 20 out of 20 that does more damage than Sogaleo is like Rickway. Oh, there's only like 3, but yeah, it gets out damaged by like Ho and Polk is kind of sad. Anyways, moving on. Toucannon, Toucannon, E tier. Beak Blast is not that great. They made it like Beak Blast. They made it not that great was because you have this extra chance to burn the opponent if they attack you with like physical move. Yeah, but you're basically relying on an AoE to hit you, unless that or else that thing just never triggers because you're not tanking with Toucannon, right? And again, 2-turn moves are just not that great, right? And we'll talk about that more when we talk about Drifblim. Moving on, Sceptile is B tier, I guess. Borderline, I'd say. B, C+. If you're on Dauntless on it, it's really... Well, if you don't run Dauntless on it, it's somewhere... Well, not that low, but if you do run Dauntless on it, it's good damage. What's really great about it is really good speed, and you get your very self-sustainable as well, which is nice. So yeah, that's that for Sceptile. Just overall good stats. Good BP on Leaf Storm, right? Slight actually issues, but again, you could fix that with Sabrina. Or if you wanted to run, I think probably Rotom would be slightly better in this situation. But yeah, there's that. Moving on. Sabrina's better. Never mind. Let's see. Oh, Charizard. Oh, that's an easy one. Charizard got a buff recently, which I do like a lot. With, again, the same thing with all the other, most fire-type strikers, right? Meganium just helps Charizard so much, right? Meganium just makes Charizard so much better, and that's really great. So, yeah, Charizard's still really good. I don't know what else to say about it. Good damage. Plus 6 speed. Piercing Gaze never misses your Blast Burns, right? That's really nice. And Heat Wave too. Heat Wave's what? Also like 90 or 95% accuracy? What's the accuracy on Heat Wave again? It's either 98 or 95, I think. Yeah, 90%. But yeah, Piercing Gaze, so it never misses. And Move Gauge Refresh on passive. Really good. And plus you're a fire type, you could run and understand. Moving on. Drifblim. Drifblim is an interesting case. A Drifblim probably put a B. It's borderline B, C+. Drifblim does good damage. Really, it's our best, in terms of damage, ghost type striker in the game. The biggest issue, honestly, with Drifblim is it has no issues tanking wise, all that stuff. Last word I actually like a lot in Drifblim. Because it does a lot of damage, unlike all the other meme last words, right? Disappearing so you don't take any damage at all is fantastic. Big issue with Drifblim is turns. Phantom Force counts as it's a 2-turn move, so you have issue. You delay your sync move countdown by 1. Is it that big of a deal? No. Is it annoying? Yes. Basically, right? It's better in shorter battles, not as good, in longer battles. Basically, moving on. Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl is basically Olivia, except doesn't buff its own accuracy. Yeah, that's about it, I guess. Not much else to say. It's basically a carbon copy of Olivia that doesn't buff it. I mean, if you want to put it in the same tier as Olivia, they do similar damage. So, moving on. Mewtwo. Let's see. Where is... Oh, there we go. C+ as well. Mewtwo does, unfortunately, the lowest damage of all the legendaries. But what I do like about Mewtwo is Mewtwo's speed is great. Mewtwo's speed is very, very good. The evasion is nice too. I mean, it's not a huge deal. I mean, no one really cares about evasion, but I like it. It's my favorite legendary. It's still good. It's just that its damage is not that great, unfortunately, if you compare it to anything else in this tier, really, right? But the big, upside, and same thing with Sogaleo. Why Sogaleo is if they had one, if they only had one type move, if they didn't have the extra type coverage, they'd be much lower, right? but they have both type coverage, and that's really, really good, right? So that's what keeps them alive despite their relatively low damage. Moving on to Salza. Like, it suffers the same thing as Beedrill, except Beedrill's much worse. Sorry, Beedrill. Moving on to Salza. Salza's great. Like, its damage isn't crazy. It's solid. Its damage is solid. But what really makes Salza great is that it's really good speed, first of all. And you could run it as a phenomenal tech unit with staggering on Smog, as well as, Smog being Smog, right? You get Poison and Flinch on the same move, 1 gauge, spammable with move gauge refresh, with phenomenal speed, right? Just overall, great tech unit, but it's a striker and we're on striker tier list, so it's kind of weird. Anyways, Egg Scyther, I'd probably put it in C tier. Egg Scyther is easily the best, in terms of strikers, the best Eggmon, right? Overall. Also, did I accidentally put this guy over here? It's supposed to be here. Anyways, it's easily the best overall striker for Eggmons. The only issue that I don't like about it, actually there's a few things I don't like about it, honestly. One being the sync move being physical, which is not that big of a deal because you could X attack yourself. But obviously you're mostly just trying to use Bug Buzz with Scyther, right? That's where the big damage comes in. Scyther does about as much as like a 3 out of 5 Berg Livani does, right? But obviously Berg Livani has on a roll, it has move gauge refresh, which Egg Scyther does not because it doesn't have a synchron. But yeah, really, really good damage overall. It's just slightly annoying, the physical special thing, but oh well. Moving on, Pinsir I think fell off a bit as well, honestly. I'd probably still put it in D tier, but it's like borderline, honestly, at this point. Pinsir fell off a bit. It's just, again, speed just not that big of an issue anymore overall. The biggest upside for Pinsir is you have 1 gauge spam, but, it does cap, right? Fury Cutter does cap, and I think it's 72 or something, and which is just really high. It's just not that big of a deal anymore. It has some limitations in terms of how do you want to play this, in terms of Mega or not. If you run it with Eevee, it's still great because Pinsir's other upside is that it has like incredible physical attack as well. I think is it still top 5 or something physical attack for physical strikers. Yeah, it's top 3 physical strikers, right? Metagross, yeah. So Pharamos a special striker. So yeah, it's still good, I guess. Moving on. But I do think it got slightly worse. Moving on to Seabad. Seabad is probably D. What saves it from its terrible BP, right? Same situation with, this guy, right? Is that it has really good special attack, and it's very much self-sustainable, plus it's water type, so you get that extra 50% buff and rain. It has the critical focus or whatever that, like, basically, even though it has like guaranteed crits instead of like crit buffs, but like as that passive that like every time you get a crit you get like +1 crit or something, so you could eventually get to +3 relatively easily. The self heals are nice. Again, just overall decent. Moving on, Pikachu is weird. We have to sort of talk about this in 2 different manners. In terms of a just striker, I'd say probably C+ or C, right? For House's Synergy, Pikachu does like about as much damage as Hau does on a discharge, right? Except Hau is AoE, obviously. And like Pikachu has like that ridiculous power reserve 28 billion whatever, right, as well, which very unrealistic. No one really runs that. But there's that possibility. Pikachu's an okay striker, but mainly people use Pikachu for its potions, right? Support Pikachu. So like if we're talking about like support version Pikachu, it's at least A tier, if not like maybe even A+, right? Even though he does get slightly outclassed lately by Skyla and some others, but as an individual unit, it's still really good in that sense, right? So moving on, Avalok is terrible. I mean, F. Do I have 2 Fs? Oh, F-, F-, right? It's just bad. Zipstrike is bad, right? Which is really sad because it's a 5-star unit. It's just really bad. Pinsir's terrible. I'd put maybe an F. I don't know. Like F and F minus. You could, well, maybe not Taurus, but like, it's really easy to throw them around. I could have just made like just one tier for them both. I guess Tate could. Okay, Tate's solidly not F minus. Congratulations, Tate. You're not F minus. Sylveon, I don't know, whatever. These don't really matter. They're kind of sad. Anyways, that's maybe this one. I guess. Hope you guys enjoyed. Oh, you know what? Oh, you know what I should do? That would be super funny. So I know how people like skip like tier list videos, like skip the explanation, just like jump straight to the end. So I'm just gonna like mess some of these up, so people will be like super confused, like what the heck, right? I'll just mess some of these up so people don't know what the heck's going on. Where's a really bad striker? The Taurus. Yeah. Okay. For those who skipped that, to the end, just see the rankings. Just screwing with them. But anyways, yeah, that's me for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like and enjoy this video. Sorry, for some more of my content. I'll see you guys in the next one.